Hi, Gemini. Let's talk about the astrology of December 2025 and January 2026 and what it signifies for you. There's a lot going on with this chart, but let's start by talking about the full moon in Gemini that occurs on December 4th. This full moon is falling in your first house. The first house is about sort of your intuitive expression in the world. So themes around identity can show up here, even your appearance. And the first house is also about sort of your relationship with yourself. There is a youthfulness to the full moon in Gemini energy. And this is something that you have a little bit of all the time, Gem. You might even look a little bit young. That's one of the traits associated with Gemini rising. And there's something wonderfully youthful about Gemini full moon energy, too. You might just feel a curiosity or a wonder for life sort of coursing through you now. Or you could feel compelled to take on a more youthful appearance or look in some way. Where and how can this youthful energy serve you in terms of your identity, your intuitive expression in the world, and your relationship with yourself? How are you being asked to bring a freshness to these topics now? Or perhaps some renewed curiosity? So this full moon occurs on December 4th, but it will be active for the following 2 weeks after that date as well. I will also include that information in the timestamps. Anyway, leaning into youthfulness in some way could serve you very well around this time, Gemini. I also feel like you're sort of wielding humor now. Gemini full moon energy is fun and funny. It's not just about applying a youthfulness or a lightness to these life areas, to your intuitive expression, your relationship with yourself. How could these things be improved a bit by maybe applying a little humor? Don't underestimate the value and importance and the potential of laughter, yours and others. It's a powerful tool, and you just might be able to wield it extra effectively during this time. You're feeling funny, you're feeling fun, you're feeling social, Gemini. There could be sort of a restlessness associated with the energy around this time, too. There's just a lot of energy. So, this full moon could correspond with sort of a jittery feeling, like there's too much to say, too much to do, too much to think about. Variety is a good thing at this time. It satiates Gemini full moon energy. But also, it might be interesting to notice the thoughts, ideas, conversations that help you feel energized versus the ones that kind of leave you spinning, keep you spinning. Paring down and directing your focus a little toward those more positive activities and away from the rest of the noise could be really helpful. Still, you're definitely holding multiple perspectives at this time. As you well know, Gemini is the sign of the twins, and full moons here tend to highlight two sides or more of a story. You might notice both versions of an experience hold some truth in their own way. This is kind of a time that's more about being curious than it is about being certain. It's okay to feel like you don't have all the answers now. This is a time for learning and having fun and gaining the benefit of seeing a situation from multiple perspectives. Not only that, but we also have to talk about the ruler of this full moon, which is Mercury, of course. And Mercury at this time is here in Scorpio, newly direct. In November, we had a powerful Mercury retrograde through Sagittarius and Scorpio. And on November 29th, Mercury turned direct in Scorpio, and it will move through this house and sign until December 11th. And then Mercury will be direct through Sagittarius from December 11th through January 1st. Well, I want to talk about this Mercury direct story. I actually want to put both of the signifiers for both of these houses up here because we're going to talk about this at the same time. There may be a way in which the story of the Mercury retrograde actually ties the themes of these houses together. So first, we have Scorpio here ruling your sixth house, Gemini. The sixth house is about your daily routines at work, and your daily routines in terms of your self-care, like the way you eat, sleep, exercise, sort of your day-to-day health habits. And then the seventh house is about your closest one-to-one relationships. I often see a spouse or romantic partner show up here, but a business partner can show up in the seventh as well. Someone that you live with, really anyone that you share your life with. This Mercury direct process this month is sort of a process of discovery and clarity. Last month's retrograde through these two signs had us digging deep, uncovering what was hidden, confronting new information and old memories, and re-examining motivation, ours and others. Now that Mercury is direct, greater clarity around these matters can surface. Answers come into focus. We were digging and listening before and getting ideas, but now we begin to get the answers. You may even find you're ready to talk with someone else about a story you've been working on privately for a while. You've discovered the truth now, and you have a clear sense of what's going on and how you think and feel about it. And I think it's always great to remember that healing brings new possibilities. The Scorpio themes around this retrograde relate to closure and healing and new possibilities. And then new options are opened up as a result thanks to Sagittarius's influence. Really, both of these signs love to learn and grow, just like you do, Gemini. And after all you've been through with this retrograde, new potentials, new options, new possibilities are available now. And they could stem not just from the information that you discovered, but from the healing work that you did last month. It's always a good reminder that healing work pays off in spades at the end of the day. It's almost always well worth our effort. We're moving forward now, Gemini. Tone and the mood is lighter now that Mercury is moving direct, and your new perspective is helping you to move forward quickly and with confidence too. You've learned what you've learned, and this might mean that you're sort of suddenly able to gain ground quickly, to move forward quickly in these life areas now. And you're likely doing that with sort of a new narrative. After weeks in November of rethinking, revising, and rereading between the lines, Mercury direct marks the beginning of a new story now. Confusion has lifted. The destination and the plot are clear. Now you might notice how what you've learned has helped you to feel more clear, more decisive and certain. You've been sort of refined by the experience of Mercury retrograde through these parts of the charts. These parts of the chart, I should say, and you're ready to begin a new story, a new chapter in your adventure because of all you've learned and done in these parts of your life. It's important also to notice another part of this Mercury direct story that's playing out at this time. Mercury is connecting by trine to Jupiter and Saturn, forming a grand water trine. We've actually been working with different iterations of this grand water trine since late October. And Mercury has been through the configuration 3 times. This is the 3rd time. Once moving direct, then retrograde, and now for the final time, direct again. Early in December, we come to the end of the grand water trine story that began in late October. At least for now, this grand water trine wraps up with this final pass of Mercury. This marks a time, a story, a learning that's been about intelligence, intuition, and emotional wisdom. For you, Gemini, this grand water trine has been playing out in very professional parts of your chart. We have Mercury here in the 6th, which deals with daily routines at work, for one thing. And then Saturn is in your 10th, which deals with work, career, and public image. This is where you might find what you do for a job, your title. And then the 2nd house, where we have Jupiter here exalted in Cancer, deals with earnings and values. So we sort of have the finances in the 2nd, the job title in the 10th, and then the actual routines of your day-to-day job in the 6th. And coworkers can show up in the 6th too. There's a sort of emotional fluency now. Understanding others deeply is a big part of what this grand water trine has been about, Gemini. Your emotional understanding is deep, rich, and clear now. You know how others feel and you understand it. Mercury in Scorpio signifies that you could be translating those feelings into words during this final pass. You could be showing up in the context of some of these professional relationships with an emotional ability, maturity, confidence, and emotional fluency that is sort of next level beyond what you've had before, beyond what you've embodied before. Jupiter in Cancer is bringing warmth and compassion to the equation. So understanding where others are coming from is easy right now. Your emotional fluency is definitely up during this time, and keep in mind that others might be too. There could be healing words in some kind of way, especially connected to your work life, Gemini. I love that it's Mercury direct that's moving through this configuration at the end of the season of this grand water trine configuration. Words have power when Mercury is in Scorpio. And with this water trine in play too, this is a time where words might even heal or transform something big. Saturn in Pisces is grounding the energy and the potential. And then I feel like Jupiter in Cancer is so generous emotionally. So conversations that happen under this influence have the potential to heal patterns, even old ones, repair trust, or just deepen the connection somehow. This is a time when people are speaking from the heart with maturity, with empathy, and often with healing intentions too. Keep in mind, Gemini, that this configuration is active from the 1st through the 9th. So we're holding this energy at the same time as that Gemini full moon that we talked about at first. It's ruled by this Mercury, now direct and in this grand water trine. There could be a feeling of safety now coming in around these sort of work professional themes. Feels really nice. Grand water trines bring a sense of emotional containment and safety. There may be a pervasive feeling now that you're supported. This could help you to process something especially important, something private, something that makes you feel a little vulnerable, because that support is in place. This emotional strength and wisdom and safety can really go a long way. You can sort of swim in difficult emotions now without feeling like you're drowning in them. And that has a lot to do with the feeling of safety and comfort that this grand trine, this grand water trine is signifying. And all of this can lead to real healing and real progress. This beginning of December is really interesting energy, especially for you professionally, Gemini. It's definitely a great time to lean into your emotional wisdom, your amazing communication skills, your emotional abilities, and sort of move the needle, help others and yourself around this time through those gifts with your skills and abilities. And that full moon is really active until we get to the Sagittarius new moon on December 19th. This Sagittarius new moon is falling in your 7th house, related to your closest one-to-one relationships. This is a lovely place for a Sagittarius new moon. There's a genuine optimism here that I'm excited about. You're not just trying to convince yourself that things are going to be okay in this life area. You're actually sincerely optimistic about the potential and the future when it comes to your closest one-to-one relationships. Again, this could be a spouse or your very closest friends, your relationship with your children, perhaps, even though they show up in the 5th. That close one-to-one nature of the relationship, they can show up here too. Or business partners, best friends. Right now, you're planting seeds when it comes to those relationships. The new moon is an opportunity to plant seeds, to set intentions in this part of the chart. And with you feeling positive and hopeful and emotionally strong and optimistic right now, this is a great energy to bring to that seed planting process. Dream big for sure, but also don't forget to be a little realistic just about the time and the energy that you'll have available to sort of pursue any objectives that you're imagining for yourself in the weeks and months ahead, connected to these goals, to these life areas, Gemini. There's something new starting here, or perhaps there should be. Sagittarius energy thrives on exploration and expansion. So you might find that you're craving a little newness or adventure now. or perhaps your closest one-to-one people are, you or they could be drawn to something new. This could be a literal movement of some kind or even just a mindset shift. It might be interesting to pay attention to the new things that are coming in now. Something new and different could feel like it's showing up right on time. And it could be just that sort of some new or some renewed beliefs are taking root now when it comes to these relationships in your life. This is a kind of new moon that sort of invites you to reflect on your personal philosophy, especially as it concerns this part of your chart. What do you believe in now that you didn't understand the same way 6 months ago? Does the way that you're living, acting, talking feel like it's lining up with that new or renewed belief? This is a great time just to check in and make sure you're living in a way that feels authentic and expansive. We should always be growing and changing. So it's important to check in with where you are now from time to time in order to just stay aligned. Keep these relationships feeling safe and secure, and also like they're growing and moving and changing and maturing and expanding into the future. There's definitely a dreaminess to this signature that I really like. I feel like that's part of the energy that's sort of moving you into this bright future that has some newness to it. It's also interesting that the sun and the moon here are in a square to Neptune, right at the end of their journey through Sagittarius, right at the time of this new moon. And then following that, we have the sun move into Capricorn and the solstice. So I want to talk specifically about those few days, sort of December 19th through 21st. Just on the heels of this new moon, the sun will square Neptune and the moon too. And that's really active during the new moon as well. Neptune is here in your 10th house related to work and career and public image. And then right after that, the sun is going to move into Capricorn, and that signifies the winter solstice. 8th house is about transformation and wisdom. And also, others' money can show up here, not your earnings, but a spouse's earnings, for example, or thing connected to like inheritances or investments. But most often, I see a spouse's income show up here in the 8th. There's sort of a little bit of an interesting story playing out between about the 19th and the 21st here. And I just wanted to mention it in the context of this new moon because both of these parts of it, both of these aspects are really important. The square to Neptune and the fact that the solstice occurs right after. It's like the fog gathers and then it clears. This Neptune square can temporarily blur things a little bit. You or a close partner could feel confused, uncertain, or unclear around the time of the new moon, despite all of that sweet positive potential that we talked about. But then the fog sort of lifts and separates as we move into that calm and clarity of Capricorn season. Suddenly you can see through the mist, or a partner can if they're the one experiencing this transit. You know what's going on. There's that clarity. You know where you want to go, or your partner does if they're the one going through this transit. So just kind of hang in there if there's some confusion or sort of blurring of the lines around the time of the new moon and the Neptune square. Because I think by the time we get to the solstice, things could feel and look pretty different and definitely a lot clearer. This is a really good time for honing in, sort of choosing goals and dreams. There's something about this process that suggests a whole lot of dreams and ambitions coming in sort of all at once around the time of the new moon and the Neptune square. And then things are sort of parsed out, trimmed back, pared down as we move into Capricorn season. It's like you and or someone who's very close to you are asking, okay, now that I've come back to my senses, what can I really do with all of those dreams? Which ones should I set aside and which should I actually work on pursuing? What's realistic and what's going a little too far? There's definitely a renewal energy here at the end of the day. This is the winter solstice, We're at a moment of a turning of the light, a returning of the light. From the darkest night of the year, we pull up and out and back into a season where the sun's light is growing slowly and steadily, day after day. So, this solstice, especially in conjunction with such an interesting new moon, it's a great time just to reflect on the past seasons and the dreams you want to carry forward. And it's also just a great time to rest and renew your spirit for all of the bright future that lies ahead. I think this is a really interesting few days. And it might feel really different at the end than it did at the beginning. So, like December 22nd, you might feel really differently about something than you do on December 18th. There may be sort of a clarity and a peace and an understanding once you have moved through that process, Gemini. And again, I do think it could be someone that you share your life with who is going through something like that. Sometimes we see them reflected in our seventh house. Okay, let's go back over to this second house now, Gemini, related to earnings and values. We have a couple of transits to discuss related to this house, actually. Let's start with the full moon in Cancer that occurs on January 3rd. You could notice some big feelings surfacing around this time. Cancer is the first water sign. All water sign energy is about emotion, intuition, compassion, things like that. But since Cancer is the first water sign, it tends to bring sort of a youthful vibe to emotions. So, emotional or protective energy can be a little over the top at this time, but it's good to remember that the feelings aren't as major as they feel. You might even notice how quickly your moods change around this time, and you could see that in others that you're spending time with too. There's a kind of culmination here, and I feel like that's extra potent since we're talking about the time right around New Year's. Of course, the calendar New Year has nothing to do with astrology, but full moons do. This full moon on the 3rd could even feel like it's sort of extending that New Year energy a little bit. Full moons are times of manifesting rewards and they're just culmination points. What did you set in motion in this part of the chart 6 months ago? How have things come together as a result of those intentions and your efforts since? And Gemini, how should you adjust your plans now in terms of your earnings and your values for the 6 months ahead? As I think I mentioned before, there is kind of a protective energy to this. Cancer energy is very protective, self-protective and protective of others. So, around the time of this full moon, you might be feeling that way too, especially where it concerns your values, what matters most to you, or your earnings in some way. You're sort of prone to be a bit protective in that way anyway, with Cancer ruling this part of your chart. And as the full moon moves through, it sort of ignites that signature. This isn't really the highest expression of Cancer energy, though, so it might help to ask yourself if you're being overly protective or defensive. Do you really think that your actions or your feelings in this way are really going to help you or someone else get where they're trying to go? Another way to take advantage of full moon energy to sort of utilize it is for noting progress. The last 6 months, the last year really, has been dynamic for this part of the chart. Mars was retrograde here over the winter of 24, and Mars was just in Cancer for months, right before Jupiter, which is exalted in Cancer, moved in over the summer of 25. This is Jupiter's favorite place to be. So it's been a lot in this part of the chart. How has this part of your life expanded or improved lately? Was there some delay first? Jupiter is still working through this house and sign, so the good growth isn't all behind us just yet. But I would say it's likely, Gemini, that you can put your finger on some tangible, solid progress by this point in the cycle. I actually want to continue to look at this part of the chart for the transit that we have next, Gemini. So here we have a chart for January 9th, Gemini, and you might notice all the activity between Jupiter and Cancer in your second, earnings and values, and across the way in the eighth house. On the 9th and the 10th, Jupiter will be opposed by not just the Sun, but also Venus and Mars. And you can see Mercury and Pluto aren't really very far away either. But although this is sort of perfecting around the 9th and the 10th, there's actually a cardinal grand cross coming in when the moon moves through here on the 10th as well. So yeah, as much as it's sort of peaking around the 9th and the 10th, this configuration is really active from the 5th through the 13th of January, Gemini. So we have your earnings and your values on one side, and then transformation and wisdom and others many over on the other side. This could just be a very busy time where you have to put some energy into finding balance. As much as you might feel pulled in more than one direction at this time, Gemini, what this transit is really calling for is balance. You don't have to choose between going two different ways or pursuing two different goals. You just kind of have to keep going. Recognizing when you've sort of tilted too far in one direction or the other can help you stay on the path. Make adjustments during this time as needed to help you find the balance you need to keep everything going. I really like that Jupiter and Venus are involved in this transit. There's generosity here and there's stability too. This kind of a transit, especially involving Venus and especially involving Jupiter and Cancer, can exaggerate our desire to give, to spend, to help. But I feel like all this Capricorn energy is helping us remember that showing up in ways that are sustainable and reliable is really, really important too. So you might find yourself giving at this time, like without giving too much. And you might also notice the way in which others are extra prone to make and keep promises. Everyone's sort of following through and just generally creating stability during this time. Like I said, even though it's an opposition, Jupiter and Venus are involved. So I think that it might be a little bit of a struggle to find the balance, but I think it's found. And it's sort of from that place in a way that there is that potential for stability. There's, so much warmth coming in from Jupiter. It's that compassion that really helps to sort of ground everything. There's drive and compassion available around this time. All of this Capricorn energy is very driven, very much ready to work hard and climb whatever ladder, staircase, mountain needs climbing. But yeah, this Jupiter in Cancer energy is making sure we don't step on or over anyone else along the way. Compassion, concern, care for others, they're available and they aren't really holding back the ambition of the Capricorn energy here. But I guess in some ways it might kind of feel a little bit that way along the way sometimes. But at the end of the day, it's all support. There's momentum here that's meaningful. This transit, this series of transits, can really help highlight for us what's working and what's not, what's just right and what's simply way too much. You might be thinking of this, Gemini, in terms of the way that you're spending your time, the way that you're investing your energy. The challenge here might be to move into the new without overextending, to look forward without losing sight of where you've come from. We want to move forward, yes, of course, but in a way that really means something. You might find your way with this around this time. The Capricorn new moon occurs on January 18th, and it's very dynamic. It's connecting by trine to Uranus in Taurus in your 12th house. The 12th house is about the time you spend alone, sort of anything that you do that maybe not everyone knows about. Hidden parts of your life can show up in the 12th house. It's also about your spirituality, and different healing themes can show up here too. And then this sun and the moon is coming from your 8th house related to transformation and wisdom and others' money. And they're also forming a sextile up to Saturn and Neptune. The sun and the moon are around this time. Saturn and Neptune are in the late degrees of Pisces. They're both direct now, and they're in your 10th house, which relates to work, career, and public image. And these are easy, harmonious aspects. And like I said, it's pretty dynamic too. This is an amazing time for building, for planning the future. Capricorn new moons always help us keep our focus on goals and ambitions and the future. Capricorn new moon energy helps us ground those plans through our efforts and our intentionality. With Uranus involved in the mix here, there's a chance to bring an innovative spark to the process too. So, what's being built in these parts of your chart, Gemini, that's genuinely new and exciting and innovative? Understanding the opportunity and the new goals now can help you lay your groundwork and get started. And Capricorn is about steady progress. This new moon might feel a little extra exciting because Uranus is involved, but it likely won't be chaotic, not with so much Capricorn energy here. Progress now in this Capricorn part of your chart in terms of this transformation and wisdom, or any planets or points that you have here. Any progress now is steady and solid. Small changes to habits or to systems could sort of subtly shift how you approach your goals. You're evolving and progressing here through consistency and small tweaks, not through complete upheaval. I mean, at the end of the day, these are the kinds of changes that are the most likely to hold. Progress that is slow and steady is progress and change that you can really count on. You might notice that you're sort of redefining success around this time in some way, Gemini, defining it for yourself. There's something so inward and contemplative about the parts of the chart that are being highlighted here. But then I kind of feel like we're talking about work and career as well, and maybe public image, just the way you're sort of seen in the world. All of that has come up so much this month. The new moon here is very dynamic, and there are so many planetary influences at this time to consider. And all of this Pisces energy is sort of loosening up old lines and boundaries. And I feel like Uranus's influence is helping to loosen the ties of outdated goals or ambitions too. So it's a time to define achievement and success on your own terms, not by how society or someone else taught you to define them. This new moon could signify a time where you're finding a more personal path. We will talk about this lunation and the very exciting Aquarius season, the eclipse season that's on deck for February. It's one for the books. On my podcast, a live stream that I do twice a week. I host that twice a week on YouTube. You can join live or watch it later, and we'll be covering those in the February reports as well. I will link here to that podcast if you're interested. If you enjoyed this report, you would probably enjoy that as well, Gemini. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful December 2025 and January 2026.